Andrew Tate is famous, or should that be infamous? If you haven't heard of him, you're living in a cage. He is synonymous with everything your grandma and probably your mother has tried to steer you away from since she had you in nappies. There is a word for his type of ideology, misogyny. It is, at its most basic, toxic masculinity. Rather than trying to purge the world of this unfortunate state of affairs, he has made millions selling it to your children. Not just uneducated people either, although there is an element of that, obviously, but to people from all walks of life. In this video, I want to discuss why such a blokey bloke has managed to exploit this weakness in our good people and suggest a way to fix this misnomer that has become a very real problem. Firstly, we must ask ourselves, why are there men in this world who want to abuse women? Why do men become such wimps wanting to bully women, and not only that, they make a culture out of it? Why are there misogynists in the world? Firstly, subjugating women means that men can feel in control and exploit women as slaves, which is uncivilized behaviour. Still, for insecure men, it will give them an ego boost they desperately need. It's a kind of barbarism that misses the point that as humans, we naturally want to live in a world where men and women form a community because that is best for our well-being and happiness, for our survival. So it follows then that to be misogynists, we must also be social outcasts that don't get on in the community. Secondly, democracy is formed on the idea that everyone is equal, which means everyone has a human right to exist in a world that supports their right to exist unmolested by others. Men who adhere to this idea of democracy have to have maturity, intelligence, and emotional intelligence. And there lies the problem. It is, superficially, easier to be savage, to shout and scream and be violent. It doesn't take much. Andrew Tate is a professional cage fighter. Among other things, violence is at the core of what his movement is all about. It is a race to the bottom. A lazy approach to a life that has not yet flourished. The question then becomes, why do all these men feel so castrated that they have to sacrifice one of the elements of life that could be one of their greatest joys, namely women? They also undermine their own communities. These men training in hatred and coercive control of women certainly have mothers, sisters, daughters, nieces, and so on. So how have they managed to feel so bad inside of themselves that they now want to throw equality, democracy and community away to pursue a dark existence that, like Andrew Tate, is likely to land them in jail or at best very screwed up and lonely? We know that Andrew Tate has spent a lot of time in jail, incarcerated in a Romanian prison. Was it worth it? I would like to posit that all these men have one thing in common. Not ignorance, not a lack of intelligence, not even any genuine hatred of women. No, what these men lack is mental and physical integrity. Or to put it more precisely, embodiment. As an Alexander Technique practitioner, I have been working on the connection between mind and body for most of my adult life, bringing mind and body into a balance that expresses who we are in a much better way than the triggered, hypertense environment that we see expounded by Andrew Tate and his cohort. The adrenaline rush of cage fighting and male toxicity manifested by Tate undermines the ability of its followers to build a proper relationship with others, with women, and even with themselves. It is to a certain extent a product of a rapidly changing world. Men no longer have to go out and fight wars. There are generations of men who never held a gun or a sword, unless they went to Tate's workshops. God is dead, as Nietzsche so eloquently put it. In this postmodern world, kids are struggling to find meaning, to find faith, to find new identities. Where do you get your morals from? Not church, not the Bible, and sadly, not through philosophy. No, kids today hunt around on the web looking for life lessons and they stumble across Andrew Tate memes because that is what the algorithms are finding makes more money online. Many people do espouse a morality that has substance, but we do not find it on our social media feeds in the same way that Tate pops up. We need to realise that society teeters on the edge of disaster if we cannot educate our children, boys and men in the ancient art of embodiment. F.M. Alexander had a vision that now more than ever needs to be realised, that mankind can fall blindly down a hole of his own making, or he can consider the means whereby he will come to understand his higher functioning. What Alexander called the use of the self or conscious constructive control. Many schools teach us about embodiment. Buddhism, yoga, martial arts, Tai Chi, Qigong, Confucianism, Taoism, Zen, and, of course, Alexander technique, to name but a few. What these lost and desperate men and boys need to realise is that they can move forward into a world where equality is good for them, where personal growth and not destruction can serve them as well as it does the rest of society. Men who isolate themselves from harmonic relationships with women destroy their lives and they end up sad, lonely old men. It was all so much fun, boys. Manifesting toxic masculinity to get ahead may seem appealing to weak minds following an expensive course from Andrew Tate, but that is because they do not know any better. Society needs to promote equality and embodiment to enable a more civilized society, a higher functioning community of happier people. Ultimately, these boys who turn into misogynists of the future have slipped through the net because society has let them. We must build a new church. Morality must be taught, and it must be taught as embodiment. These lost boys must start with themselves, looking inward and cultivating awareness of right actions through expanded consciousness and awareness. We start to cultivate connections between the mind and body, and from there we learn to live in harmony with ourselves and each other. We learn to work on our interior landscape, not to be triggered by the external world. Andrew Tate promotes a fear reflex in his followers so that he can control them the same way he controls vulnerable women. By subjugation, he creates his little army of servant boys, each one losing their lives to his toxic money-making machine. But there is another way. We can live in the pursuit of peace and harmony, of embodiment. We need to help our boys to realise that is where our salvation lies. Not making some jumped-up internet sensation wealthier by the day as he kicks you when you are down, and asks for another few hundred to find out why he kicked you. You will do much better working on yourself in a way that serves your community, because that is the best way to serve yourself. Don't throw your life and love away on wishful thinking. The only person getting rich in Andrew Tate's world is him. Indeed, he is doing it at your expense. More importantly, humans are social animals. If you live to undermine others in your community, then you ruin your own life. Well-being comes from serving the community, not destroying it. We don't want to hate on people. Having overcome our own pain and suffering, we learn compassion. That is the ultimate goal, the ultimate challenge, to express and teach compassion towards all living things. Using the Alexander technique may be the quickest route for men who need to find themselves in this fast-changing world. It certainly did it for me. Goodbye.